Hello everyone, my name is Sam West, and today we'll discuss getting started with the next generation of Workflow Manager. We'll cover foundational concepts, configuration of a new system, and an overview of the web app. This is a new service-driven architecture available at 10.8.1. For more information on the existing enterprise geodatabase-driven deployment, see the comments below. So what is Workflow Manager? Well, it's a scalable enterprise workflow management system that automates and simplifies many aspects performing and managing GIS and non-GIS work in an organization. What this means is that we aim to optimize operations by providing real-time tools for managing people, processes, and products required to complete work. We help drive improvement in production efficiency by maintaining standardized, centralized, and repeatable workflows across your organization, reducing errors and saving time, while automating or reducing repetitive manual work and integrating tools across the Esri platform. In today's world, workflows aren't just desktop-centric. Workflow Manager's responsibility now is to create seamless end-to-end workflows that are easy to use, easy to configure, and make our users more productive whether they are on the web or out in the field. Workflow Manager now has two deployment patterns for your organization to leverage. The first is our traditional deployment, tied to an enterprise geodatabase with a desktop client and extension for server. This has been typically used by organizations for processes involving multi-user desktop data edits, with only reporting as a web component. The second deployment is the focus of this presentation. It is a new service-driven architecture available at 10.8.1. This is a workflow server licensed by user using user type extensions similar to utilities and parcel mapping. Organizations will now have the capability to perform work on the web in ways that weren't previously possible. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the new deployment pattern. The next generation of Workflow Manager starts with a new server within ArcGIS Enterprise. Accessible out of the portal is the workflow item, which represents one instance of Workflow Manager deployed on that enterprise. Organizations can have multiple if they'd like to give different departments their own workflow system. We have a new web app with a suite of new pages to create workflows and administer the system, monitor the progress and status of work, and a completely new experience for performing work on the web that we're excited about. Additionally, there is a new Pro implementation focused on the workers in Pro to help them search, filter, and run work. And we will maintain all the same extensibility opportunities for widgets and custom apps. Before we get started with deploying Workflow Manager, your enterprise architecture should be considered. ArcGIS Workflow Manager Server requires a base deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise. This includes an ArcGIS Enterprise portal, an ArcGIS server federated with the portal and designated as its hosting server, ArcGIS Data Store, and two instances of ArcGIS Web Adapter, one configured with the portal and another with the server. It is recommended that Workflow Manager Server be deployed on an additional server site alongside ArcGIS Server to obtain the best performance. Now that we have our plan in place, we'll go ahead and install and deploy Workflow Manager. To get started with our installs, we first need to download both the ArcGIS Workflow Manager server and ArcGIS Workflow Manager web app packages from the My Esri page. These are available starting with 10.8.1 Enterprise. First, install the server at the server site. As part of the server install, you'll be prompted for the ArcGIS server account credentials. Once the server installation is complete, we'll need to provide the server licensing role authorization file, obtained in the same way as other server licenses from My Esri. And with that complete, jump over to your base deployment and begin the web app install in much the same way. Make sure to update your portal user type extension license to include your add-on user type extension licenses for Workflow Manager Server. Now that we've installed Workflow Manager Server at the server site and the web app on our base deployment, we'll go ahead and license users within our organization to access the product, as well as designate the server licensing role so that enterprise can communicate between each element properly. To provide these licenses, we first navigate to our portal and click Organization, and then head to the Licenses tab. From here, we scroll down to the User Type Extension section. We'll then click Manage next to ArcGIS Workflow Manager and assign licenses as appropriate to our organization. For initial configuration, we may only want to license ourselves, for instance. Now that we've licensed our users, the next step is to configure the server role. To do this, we scroll back up to the top and navigate to the Settings tab. And then select Servers. Just like setting your hosting server, you will select the server site where you installed Workflow Manager Server. Now that this role is set, we can start the ArcGIS Workflow Manager server service at our server site to begin our journey of the web app. This must be done after setting the server role. There are a couple different ways to access the web app. The easiest will be to click the Apps drop-down and select Workflow Manager. This option is only visible once the user is licensed and will take us directly to the Workflow Manager web app. Once here, we are presented with a Workflow Items page, but we don't currently have any items, so we'll create our first instance called Survey Department. We also could have just navigated to this URL directly. In order to create or share a workflow item, the user must be a portal publisher or administrator. A workflow item is a single instance of Workflow Manager, including the feature layer, job location views, and all data pertinent to that instance. Organizations can have multiple items if they'd like to give different departments their own workflow system, and these can be shared with only the groups that need access to those instances, as we'll demonstrate later. Once item creation is complete, a Workflow Administrator group is created for that item, and the user who created the item is added to that group. This group is associated with roles within Workflow Manager to give them administrator access. Now let's explore the web app. We'll first check out the work page, since that is where most tasks will be performed. On the work page, you can search for and perform work on jobs assigned to you or your groups. I've gone ahead and created some work so we can view this in action. Since we are admin with the appropriate privileges, we can see a few different panels. The first is the Create panel. Here, we can create work before assigning it to users within the organization. There is an introductory job to help us get acquainted with the system. A job is a single unit of work in the Workflow Manager system. In some organizations, a job might be known as a work order or a task. It can be assigned to a person, a few people at the same time, or a group, and scheduled for completion by a certain date. This job includes the workflow steps to complete, as well as the job details, outlining its scope. It can also contain additional help for completing steps, attachments, the job's location, and associations to spatial data. Many jobs of the same type can be created in the system. We'll now run through our new job to explore some key concepts. To begin, we just need to click the Start Step button. The job has expanded, and we are presented with an instructional prompt, as well as step help to guide us. In this case, the step is a manual step, so we'll need to take care of this task ourselves. We can pause the step if we need to step out for lunch, and start it again once we return. If we accomplish the task while the step wasn't running, we can just mark it as complete by clicking Complete Step instead. However, once we've accomplished the task, we just need to click the Proceed button to continue. The next step was started immediately and has some more educational information regarding the Can Be Skipped option. This option denotes that a step can be marked as complete without being run, such as for an optional part of a business process. We'll just click Complete Step to continue, since this step is optional. It's common practice to configure most steps to automatically run. This saves time and helps keep your processes running smoothly, such as when running geoprocessing services to prep data for analysis. However, it doesn't always make sense to use, such as when opening a web app, where it'd feel jarring to your analysts, so we'll show you how to configure this option later. Another amazing feature is that of parallel steps. These allow multiple parts of your business processes to occur simultaneously. You can have one team working through an approvals process, while another conducts a field survey or analysis on data. In this case, each of these steps is assigned to us, so we can see the different parallel steps in the dropdown. If they weren't, we'd only see the work that was relevant to us. Let's mark these as complete to continue. This step has done something new. We are presented with a map of the world in addition to the familiar prompt and step help. This is known as a Define Location step and is useful for noting where work will occur. This can be used to automatically zoom to an extent when opening a web app or performing analysis with GP services. Our work is going to occur in Redlands, so we'll navigate directly there and define our location using the available widgets. In this case, we drew a rectangle, but polygons, polylines, and multi-points are also supported. And the accessible widgets are also configurable for the step. We can clear the location if we make a mistake, but this is good for now. So let's proceed. Now that we've proceeded, a question has appeared on the job, asking us if the location needs modification. If we click yes, we return to the same step as before and can adjust our location. The location is fine, so we'll go ahead and proceed again. This time, by clicking no, a different return code will be used to guide the work along a separate path. We are now instructed to add attachments. This could be anything from a zip shapefile to a scanned PDF of a work order, and is limited by the configuration of your enterprise to be more secure. We just need to click Browse and select a file to attach. This PDF will do. We can rename it using the alias that will make more sense to others, download it if needed, or delete the attachment if we uploaded something by mistake. We'll click Proceed now that we're done with the step. Before continuing, we'll look at the Job Details panel. This panel contains properties about the job, such as dates, priority, or extended properties. Each tab within this panel can have its visibility controlled, which we'll discuss later, but as the administrator, I can see where in the workflow diagram we are, as well as the job location. Additionally, we can view the attachment we just added, as well as download them if necessary. We'll go ahead and collapse the panel and continue with our work. We have now entered the Open App step. An embedded application is opened within the context of Workflow Manager. The step has been configured with a URL to take us to this app, but the URL is hidden due to the app being embedded. This is handy when sending job information, such as a job version, to prevent erroneous edits. The Job Details panel is once again visible, with a new addition at the bottom to allow us to finish or pause our work. But for now, I'd like to hide this to see more of the app that I'm working on. The panel has collapsed, and I can move the new widget so that it isn't blocking our visibility. We'll go ahead and pretend our work here is complete and finish the step. We are taken back to the Workflow Manager web app. If we'd like to see that handy Details panel again, it is accessible on the right by clicking the Details button. We'll go ahead and click Proceed. And with this final step, our work is done, allowing us to dismiss the job from our view. And with that, our quick tour of the work page is complete. Let's navigate to the Design page to learn how to translate our business processes into jobs just like the one we walked through. The Design page is used by Workflow Manager administrators to create and manage workflow diagrams and job templates, as well as configure system settings. Here, we are looking at a workflow diagram, which is a visual representation of a business process consisting of individual steps and paths. And Workflow Manager, this is more than just a simple flowchart, as each step can be configured with its own type, style, and logic, and paths can be configured to perform specific actions after a step is run. We'll click Edit to take a closer look at the diagram for the job that we just ran through. On our left, we can see the step library. This is filled with step templates, which are pre-configured steps that perform different types of actions when a job is run. We explored a few of these previously, but there are many to help model your processes. On the right, we have the diagram settings. Here we can name and describe the diagram and add spatial data, such as the branch version feature services that we'd like our analysts to work with. If we click on a step, such as the question step we saw not too long ago, we will see details specific to that step's execution on the right. Here we can see that it has been configured to automatically run and not be skipped. The prompt can be edited under the logic, and help can also be adjusted as needed. In this case, we have configured two arguments, which we previously saw as our potential answers, but next to them they have something called a return code. This return code indicates which path should be followed and is not unique to the question step. You can also make use of return codes to send an email if a GP service fails overnight, for example. Let's take a look at the paths coming out of this step to see how this works. At the top of the Path Details panel, we see that this has been configured to maintain the step assignment and status of the job. We can configure these paths to direct work to other teams and change the status for reporting, as we'll see later. Let's continue exploring the path logic. Here we can see that this path is looking for a return code of 1, which corresponds with the yes from before to return to the defined location step. The other path coming out of our question step expects a 0 to continue along our process. These are a powerful tool for making sure the right work is accomplished. Now let's explore how this diagram is associated with a job template for us to create a job from. All jobs are created from a job template that is associated with a workflow diagram. The job template contains the default job properties assigned to a job when it's first created, such as the first person to whom it will be assigned, the priority, and the due date, as well as any additional job properties that were added by your organization using extended properties. Extended properties allow organizations to store additional properties that meet specific business needs, such as parcel or work order information. They can be configured using the Update Job Properties step within your workflow, and even used as inputs to other steps, such as the Run GP service and Send Email steps, using ArcGIS Arcade expressions. Access to this job template can also be managed using the Sharing tab. We can share it with specific groups within our organization, or with everyone, depending upon our business needs. The next tab to explore is the Settings tab. The first page visible here is that of groups. Groups are managed in your organization's ArcGIS Enterprise portal. Roles can be assigned to groups within your organization to help users accomplish work appropriate to their responsibilities. In this case, our admin group created with the item has been assigned the Workflow Administrator role to grant us access across the application. We can click All Groups to associate these roles with our organization's current groups. Let's take a closer look at these roles. Roles are made up of a set of privileges that manage access and available functionality. There are dozens available to tailor access. This Manage Jobs Advanced role allows users to update assignment of steps as well as job-specific properties. Additionally, we can see that they have the same visibility of the Details panel that we have as a workflow administrator. To make use of email, we head to the Email Notifications tab and configure the settings here based on your infrastructure to allow the Send Email step to send email notifications. The final tab, Shared Searches, allows us to customize the searches we saw on the work page to tailor how work is viewed based on your organization's needs. These searches can be shared with specific groups to allow for a more effective view of their work. The last page we'll look at is the Manage page. The Manage page is used by production managers to create work, monitor and update existing work, and review completed work. It allows organizations to continually monitor and review the status of work. Here, we are presented with a map view of the job locations of work based on the selected search in the Search/Create panel. The Summary panel reports information based on the same search, such as job status. We can see more detail by selecting one of the jobs to bring up the details panel that we have seen previously. Additionally, we can run custom searches to monitor the work, such as searching for high priority jobs. We can also create work from here using the Create tab. And with that, our exploration of the Workflow Manager web app is complete. Let's finish setup by sharing this item with our organization. Access to the item we created is based on how it is shared within your ArcGIS Enterprise portal. We'll go ahead and navigate to the item to manage how this instance is shared. It can be shared with everyone or just with specific groups to compartmentalize access within your organization. We must also share the workflow locations layer. And with that, we have finished deploying Workflow Manager. In this demonstration, we discussed foundational concepts for the new deployment architecture, walked through installing and deploying Workflow Manager Server to our enterprise, and took an introductory tour of each page of the web app. Thank you for your time, and I hope this helps you get started on your journey.